There's something to be said about having attractive features in your vehicles. However, there are also many features that people want, but which have no value whatsoever. We're not talking about value for some people either. These features may be popular, but practically they're useless. Okay, so what exactly are we talking about? Let's go ahead and dive into the list. At number 10, we have the use of electronic parking brakes. We all know about these. This is a feature that's designed to lock the car's wheels when parked. However, it can be difficult to maintain, and it can also be quite expensive. These electronic parking brakes are just like a regular parking brake, except guess what? They're electronic. This means that they require additional complexity and can cause a whole host of new problems. Maintenance, for example, is more difficult with electronic parking brakes. You'll need to have a technician change your brake pads, as electronic diagnostics are required. Another downside is that you can't do a handbrake turn, so if you're into that sort of thing, you're out of luck. Basically, this unique tech is designed to push up prices and not really solve anything, so it definitely belongs on our list. With that said, gearheads and car enthusiasts will no doubt continue to clamor for this feature regardless. Number 9 is automatic headlights. This brilliant innovation was designed to ensure that people would never forget to turn their headlights on when they're driving. The sensors in the car would detect when it was getting dark and would automatically turn the headlights on. However, there are a few issues with this technology. The first is that the sensors can often be fooled. For example, they might detect adequate light in daytime fog or heavy rain. However, visibility would be reduced in these conditions to such an extent that headlights are required. The second issue is that there can often be a delay linked to a change in light levels. So if you're driving into a tunnel, the lights won't automatically turn on right away, which can create a period of time when the car is unsighted. Imagine you're driving into a tunnel and your car's headlights don't automatically turn on. That would be quite a scary experience. Overall, this feature is more trouble than it's worth, and it definitely doesn't live up to the hype. Number 8 is keyless entry, a feature that's designed to make it easier for people to get into their cars. Well, that's the issue, but let's go ahead and explore this in a little more detail. The idea behind keyless entry is that you don't need to use a physical key to unlock your car. Instead, you can just use a key fob. This is great in theory, but there are a few practical problems. For one thing, it's very easy to lose your key fob. If you misplace it, you won't be able to get into your car or even start it. Another downside is that criminals have become quite adept at stealing cars with keyless entry systems. They use devices that amplify the signal from the key fob, and this allows them to unlock and start the car without ever having to physically touch the fob. So, while keyless entry is a great idea, in theory, it's not so great in practice. Instead, it's led to a lot of stolen cars and a lot of frustrated drivers. Next, at number 7, we have paddle shifters on non-performance models. Automatic gearboxes are now so good that they can actually shift gears faster than a human can. This has led to the development of paddle shifters, which are used to control the gearbox manually. Ferrari was one of the first companies to really make paddle shifters mainstream, but they're now used on a wide range of vehicles. However, there's one big problem with paddle shifters. They're completely unnecessary on non-performance vehicles. Sure, if you're driving a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, then paddle shifters make perfect sense. But on a Ford Focus or a Honda Civic, not so much. The thing is, regular drivers just don't need to be able to manually shift gears. The automatic gearbox is more than capable of doing that for them. Paddle shifters are nothing more than a gimmick, and they add unnecessary costs to a car. So if you're looking at a non-performance vehicle, just say no to paddle shifters. It's neither here nor there on a performance vehicle, but on a regular car, they're just a waste of money. The motorized seatbelt presenter is our number 6 pick for useless car features. If you've never heard of a motorized seatbelt presenter, it's basically a device that extends the seatbelt to you when you sit down in the car. The idea is that it makes it easier to buckle up, but in reality, it's just a time-consuming gimmick. It's far simpler and faster to just reach back and grab the seatbelt yourself. So unless you're planning on using your car as a taxi, there's really no need for a motorized seatbelt presenter. It's just another pointless feature that adds cost to a car without providing any real benefit. Number 5 is rear seat entertainment systems. Okay, these are kind of cool. Rear seat entertainment systems are exactly what they sound like. Systems that provide entertainment to people sitting in the back seats of a car. Usually this takes the form of a DVD player or a video game system. However, there are a few problems with rear seat entertainment systems. Firstly, they were very expensive. Secondly, they often require professional installation, which can add even more cost. Thirdly, they're not really that practical. Sure, they'll keep the kids entertained, but they also keep them distracted. And if you're driving, that's the last thing you want. So, while rear seat entertainment systems can be fun, they're not really worth the money or the hassle. The one thing they have going for them is that rear seat entertainment systems can often be used to play movies or TV shows on long journeys. So, if you're planning a road trip, they can be a nice way to pass the time. Just don't expect them to be a game changer. Number 4 is the infamous suicide doors. Okay, admittedly, suicide doors do look pretty cool, and they're often seen on high-end luxury cars, such as the Lincoln Continental coach door and several Rolls-Royce models. However, they're also extremely impractical, especially when found on regular cars like the Opel Meriva and Mazda MX-30. The main problem with suicide doors is that they make it very difficult to get in and out of the car. They also reduce the strength of the car's structure, as there's less metal to support the weight of the roof. So while suicide doors may look good, they're not really worth the inconvenience or the safety concerns. Hence the name suicide doors. Basically, you're sacrificing practicality for style, and that's not a good trade-off. Number 3 is the heads-up display. The heads-up display is a feature that projects information onto the windshield so that the driver can see it without taking their eyes off the road. This can include things like speed, navigation, and even incoming text messages. Sounds great, right? Well, unfortunately, the heads-up display is often more of a hindrance than a help. The main problem is that it can be quite distracting. After all, you're trying to look at the road ahead while also trying to read the information on the windshield. This can take your attention away from driving, and that's definitely not a good thing. Another issue is that the heads-up display is often positioned in such a way that it reflects off the windshield. This can create a glare that makes it difficult to see. So while the heads-up display is a great idea in theory, it's not so great in practice. Number 2 is quite possibly the most useless feature yet: gesture control. So what exactly is gesture control? Basically, it's a feature that allows you to control your car using gestures. For example, you might be able to change the radio station by waving your hand in front of the infotainment system. Or you might be able to answer a phone call by holding your hand up to your ear. Sounds great, right? Well, unfortunately, gesture control doesn't really work all that well. The main problem is that it can often be very inaccurate. For example, you might be trying to change the radio station, but the car doesn't interpret your gesture correctly. Or you might be trying to answer a phone call, but instead, you end up making a phone call to someone else. This can result in some pretty frustrating experiences, and it's definitely not worth the hassle. So unless you're planning on driving a Tesla Model S, just say no to gesture control. And finally, our number 1 pick for something that just plain sucks are glass gear knobs. Okay, so this one isn't exactly a feature. It's more of an aesthetic choice that some car makers have made. Basically, instead of using a traditional gear knob, they've opted to use a piece of glass. And while it might look good, it doesn't really work all that well. The main problem is that glass is quite slippery, so it can be difficult to get a good grip on it. This can make shifting gears quite difficult, and that's definitely not a good thing. Another issue is that glass is quite fragile, so it can easily break. And if that happens, you'd be left with a gear knob that's completely useless. So while glass gear knobs might look good, they're not really worth the hassle. Let's sum it up. That's it for this list though. Overall, these are features that are either overrated or just plain useless. So if you're looking for something that just plain sucks, this is definitely the list for you. What's your least favorite feature on this list though? Let us know in the comments.